The fact that something is cultural doesn't mean it is right.
Yes.
Women are shamed. Men are mocked when they complain of abuse. So sometimes the success of a woman is a function of how long she has kept her marriage. Why is it called an abuser? It's because under normal circumstance, it doesn't even have the ethics and morality of a decent human being. That's why he's an abuser. So how can you trust that kind of person to sit down and reflect and tell himself that, oh, that woman I beat yesterday was uncalled for? I'm sorry. Can I just tell you the work of the therapy?
Okay.
And then I give you in 2 seconds. 1, 2, it's over. As a matter of fact, some women have been so traumatized that if their husband doesn't beat them, it feels that the husband is giving attention to another woman.
That's crazy. That's insane. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to Wet Waters episode 6. And the topic is the gray areas of abuse, love or control. This one's going to be deep, guys. This one's going to be really, really deep. I've got with me Mr. Brian, once again.
Hello.
Say hello to your people.
Hello.
They're watching
I'm
you.
Brian right here. I'm sure you guys already know me. Okay. So I'll take it over to the next person.
I mean, why not? And of course, we've got Wet Waters, Mr. Own. Mr. Wet Waters himself. Mr. K.
Hi guys, yeah, it's a great one to be here again. It's a great day to be alive, like I would always say.
It's a
I
great
hope
day
you
to be
enjoyed
alive.
this episode.
Yes.
Sit back, relax, drop your comments, call in. Let's hear your suggestions about the subtopics we'll be treating. And I hope you have a great time watching us today.
Yes, I hope we do so as well. So I think I've already, if you guys are online and you're watching us, leave your flag. Pratish is watching us. What's up, Pratish? Tanvir, Pakistan, he'll have his Pakistan flag there. Pratish says hi with the Malaysian flag. Gwen says hi with the Malaysian flag as well. Thank you so much. And welcome to our stream. Norris Dobra, very, very interesting name. Dobra, hello. I'm on TikTok as well. All right, cool. So we're going to deep dive into this. So let's start with the first topic, the discussion. So when it comes to abuse, there are many layers hidden between or beneath what we actually term as just abuse. So I think we're gonna bring up a very interesting stat for us to start the conversation over. So as a reference, right? In the United States, this is one of the facts. In the United States, domestic violence affects various racial and ethnic groups differently. So for example, 9.2% of black individuals experience domestic violence, followed by 8.6% of Hispanic individuals, followed by 8.2% of American Indian or Alaskan Native individuals, and 5.7% of non-Hispanic whites. Notably, 12.5% of multiracial individuals reported experiencing domestic violence in the past year itself. So, Kay, I just want to ask you to just quickly explain a little bit. What do you think about the size of this? Because if you're talking about 9.2%, or let's say, for example, America has about 400 million people there, right? Plus minus, give or take. And 10% of that is 40 million people experience this. And this is just within one ethnic group. Please tell us, why do you think this is happening so frequently?
I think this statistics talks of domestic violence. And domestic violence is just one part of abuse. It's physical abuse, right? There are other parts of abuse. And if you want to consider the other different parts of abuse, emotional, sexual, verbal abuse, these are holistic view of abuse. And based on that, I can guarantee you that almost every human being has experienced.
Almost every human being.
Almost every human. If you want to limit it to just physical abuse, then of course there are a lot of people who haven't experienced it. But the whole concept of abuse, because we're talking of the gray areas of abuse, right? The whole concept of abuse itself is something that I think one way or the other we've gone through abuse. We've been abusers or we've been, right? And we are talking about statistics of abuse in society.
Yes.
I guarantee you, we are four in this studio right now, right? And I guarantee that every one of us, one way or the other, have experienced it. So I
Definitely.
think that this is the essence of a podcast like this, Wet Waters, where we challenge, social norms and we debunk ideas and we try to correct social ills in
Yes.
society to make relationship better for every one of us.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, I would always say, if you take a very critical look at this, it's very serious. Relationship is important. You look at the richest man in the world. You look at the second richest man. Look at the third richest man. You see what happened with Bill Gates, right? Jeff Bezos, right? Is Jeff Bezos, right? That just went through divorce, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So these things
And
happen.
lost half of his stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, in as much as we might be busy with our lives, we might be chasing career, doing all sort of things, profession and all of that. But then I think the relationship a person is involved in goes a long way to determine every other facet of his life,
How
spiritually,
successful the person is
professionally,
going to be.
and all of
Yeah.
that. We've talked about this in our previous episodes. But
Yes, we have.
so yeah, that's the essence of this podcast.
I think in terms of abuse in itself, it's wide and it varies from every single thing. But in terms of violence or in terms of physical abuse, I think it's something that it's not easy to process because I think there are stages that leads up to it. So which brings me to my first question: what is the thin line? What is the line that draws abuse between abuse and discipline in relationships? Because there are cultures or people out there that sees physical abuse not as an abuse but as a way of disciplining people. Maybe Brian, you want to share a bit about this?
Of course. Why you want to start with me on this?
Because you shared something very interesting last week.
Okay. Discipline and abuse. So you won't know the difference if discipline is also called abuse. Of course, discipline. Like I said last time, when we were kids and they beat us because they love us. Is that abuse?
I mean, back then it wasn't called abuse; it was called love, hard love.
So if you beat someone you love now, is it abuse?
Interesting. What do you guys think for Dinger's question? If
You
you beat
understand?
someone, is it love or is it abuse?
If you beat someone you love now, it's called discipline because you're disciplining the person to get the person in the right shape, not because of you won't hurt the person, but because of you just want you. And some people maybe they don't know how to express themselves, but they only know how to express themselves by beating the person. But you really love the person. Will I call it love, or will I call it discipline, or will I call it abuse?
What would you say?
I will call it discipline. It's not abuse. It's not. But people will say that's abuse.
So, in your perspective, what is abuse? What do you call abuse?
It's if you're doing something, if you put it in the way that you're disciplined, you're being physical with your partner or someone you really love. I won't call that abuse. But if you're doing it out of
Anger.
yes, or you're
Under the
or,
influence of
yes,
something.
or you're doing it without you owe no remorse over that. You're just doing it on this person without you're not loving the person. You get me? Then
Wow.
that I will call abuse. But if you really love this person, because you can't really know if this person actually love this person or not, because you're not in the person's life at that point, so you can't actually determine how the person is really, what the person really feeling.
Yeah.
If you really love this person that is doing this to the person, I'm just saying that's where I'm thinking. But it might not be. Maybe other people might think I'm thinking some other kind of way, but it's fine. This is just my own perspective.
I think
on
you
this.
brought up something very interesting when you say that if someone does the act of abuse or the act of beating without remorse, I think that's a very interesting take because there are people I've seen that when they get on a violent cycle, they end up feeling remorseful after that almost immediately. But there are some people who, if they do the act without remorse, it actually shows that they are embodying the abuse as part of their character. And by not feeling remorseful or not feeling sad about what they've done, it causes them to feel like it's okay to beat on someone. What do you think about that? Okay.
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
And like I would always say, it is only ignorance and arrogance that will make a mind dismiss any idea. It's ignorance and arrogance that will make a mind dismiss any idea.
Ignorance and arrogance.
Yes. So based on that, I would not want to dismiss what you're saying.
Yes.
But the first time you said it in the last episode, that beating your partner is not necessarily abuse.
Abuse.
It was shocking.
That was a
to me.
shocker, right? Yeah.
But I have gone back to reflect on it and to somewhat, I'm not going to accept it, but to somewhat consider what you're saying. Otherwise, I would be screaming already,
Yes.
like you're wrong.
Yes.
You understand? And like I said in the previous episode, right? Abuse in one country is not necessarily abuse in another
The
country.
Mm.
And if we are to be factual and realistic,
Mm-hmm.
some abuse in one country is discipline in another country. We watched a video one time during COVID where a man was flogging his wife. I can't remember. I think it's Saudi Arabia. I can't remember. One of these Arab countries. And there was a lot of uproar online that this guy was flogging his wife and she was crying.
And it's abuse.
But in that settings,
Mm-hmm.
culturally or customary,
Mm-hmm.
it is accepted as discipline.
Yes. Yes.
So this is why we not completely toss this guy out of the window.
Because cultural
You
differences around
understand?
the world, yeah, cultural
That's
differences
why-
around the world.
Cultural difference.
That's why
true
I
that.
said. That's why I said it is ignorance and arrogance to dismiss another idea. You understand? We must consider it because what he's saying now, like I commented on Instagram, right? I said, funny enough, he's speaking the mind of a large population of men,
Of
even
course.
if they don't have the balls to say it online.
Yes.
Just-
But he is speaking the mind of a large population of men from certain parts of the world. So I think this brings us to the first subtopic:
Yes.
the influence of culture.
Yes. Thank you for being the host, Kid. Ladies and gentlemen, the host has now transformed. So I'm now the guest. We've got Mr. K as the host. I was about to segue and he's like, okay, let's touch it. Okay. So the first topic is just like what Kay mentioned, the influence of culture and gender on abuse. So why it's really important to talk about how culture influences the mindset around abuse, whether it's actually abuse or it's a form of discipline. So I'm gonna give you a study, all right? People in TikTok, what's up, yo? What's up? So we've got Sheesh and Sheesh from two people. Question, yeah, what is the thin line? Studies indicate that domestic violence against women is most prevalent in regions such as Central Sub-Saharan Africa, Western Sub-Saharan Africa, the Andean, Latin America, South Asia, East Sub-Saharan Africa, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. And conversely, the lowest prevalence rates are observed in Western Europe, East Asia, and North America. So I've got a very interesting question for this. How do different culture normalize or even enable abuse?
You underage marriage is also a form of abuse.
Underage marriage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some countries.
Explain.
Some countries,
Yes.
like some Arab countries, they're allowed to marry as early as 10 years, 9 years, like that. And
Yes.
I'm not, if maybe the
You're
age
not-
is not
yeah.
right, but,
But consider underage in certain other
in
countries.
certain places,
Yeah.
it's okay. But in some countries, that is not right.
It's a big no-no.
It's a big no.
Yeah.
So you should have a limit. You should know this is the age you can get married, or this is some. But some countries is fine.
Shockingly,
Yes.
Malaysia, certain parts of Malaysia condone underage marriage.
Mm.
Probably even till this day, even though it's widely contested now, there are still underage marriage happening.
And then you have other parts of Malaysia that treat such a situation as rape. Like what's it called? Statutory rape. Is that what
Statutory
it's called?
rape.
Yeah,
Statutory rape, yeah.
in the same country.
Yes.
So this is why I said I'm not gonna dismiss his opinion. You understand? Because I think it's an intelligent mind that wants to consider all possible perspectives.
Kay is saying that you're intelligent. For the first time on the podcast.
So if you say so,
If
I
you say-
appreciate.
Yes. But I think aside from underage marriage as part of form of abuse, what enables abuse in like these different countries? You know, example like maybe we're talking about like certain countries that says abuse is not abuse; it's actually a form of discipline. What causes them to think that way? Why do they accept that as that? Maybe
So the same thing Kay was talking about earlier about some countries like
Yeah.
Arab, the guy was beating his wife, and
Yeah.
it's fine. It's fine because of maybe the kind of the way they're brought up, or they see men above women. So
Like a patriarchy system.
yeah, so they anything they do, anything a man does to the lady, it's fine. It's not an abuse. You get me?
No, I don't. Not entirely in this perspective. Maybe you want to
Okay.
deep dive a little bit.
Okay, like in Arab, they look at men above women. So whatever a man
Men's above
does
women, okay.
to a woman, it doesn't matter.
The man is meant
The
to
man
be dominant.
is yes,
Yes.
is meant to be above. So it's meant to do. He can do anything, and they don't look at it as he's being abusive to the lady.
Yes.
Like even if it's flogging lady, it's normal. Is a man because of he's a man.
And so what if the women decide to open up in those countries? They
That's
go to the
it,
police and be like,
because of the region.
yes.
That region, that's how they see things. That geographical area, they see things like that. I'm just saying because that's
Yeah.
that's the reason why. Because there's some other places like in Western world, like in America and all that, like you can't do that. Women have more rights than men.
Yeah.
That's why you see the women, they're the ones that speak out. The men don't even speak out because of people won't even believe what the men are saying because the women are the ones that they listen to more than the men.
Men,
Yes.
You see,
It's
Yes.
interesting that you're saying this. We're talking about the influence of culture or gender on abuse in relationship, right? So I'll start by saying this. I want to give a very little story.
Sure.
There was a young girl in a village, okay?
what
And
village?
the village is a hypothetical village.
Okay.
Give it any name you want. Now, she went to her mom and asked her mom, why is it that when you're cooking fish, you cut the head and the tail, right? And then the mom said, well, that is how we've been doing it. It's the best way to go about it. And then she went to her grandmom and she asked her grandma, why do you guys cut the head and the tail of the fish every time you want to cook it? And the grandma said, well, that is how we've been doing it. That's how my mother did it. And that's the best way to do it. And then she went to her great grandmother and asked the same question. And the great grandmother said, the reason why we cut the head and the tail is because at that time we had only small pots. There was no big pot.
So that doesn't make any sense.
And we are living in a world where there are big pots.
Yes.
So what is the problem?
Yes.
This is what culture, tradition, custom is all about.
Yes.
I know it's a very sensitive topic to talk about because nobody wants to sit down and watch somebody tell him that what your great grandfather, your grandfather, and your father has been doing should be changed. You know?
Yes.
But a wise man once said, a quotable notable said, change is the only constant thing in life.
Right.
You
Change
understand?
is constant.
As
It's the
a-
only thing that you can count on being different all the time is change.
Yes. As a matter of fact, we can't tell you to change your custom. We can't tell you to change your tradition or your culture. But I think that based on the advancement of technology, advancement of society, evolution, I think culture is something we should always look at every now and then. Do the check and balances and see how it fits into the current day dispensation. You understand?
Interesting.
So this is why, in my own opinion, I would say if you take a particular custom and you hold on to it, I just think you're like that woman who is cutting the fish, the head and the tail, and putting it in a pot, not knowing why you're doing it. Because the truth of the matter, I was discussing with my ex-girlfriend back then, and I told her something. I said, it's funny that patriarchy system benefits men, right? But there is a recoil, I call it recoil and ripple effect
Right.
in the long run. He said something just now. He said, why is it that in Western societies, for example, when a woman complains of domestic violence or a man complains of domestic violence or there is a case of domestic violence, nobody listens to the man.
Yes.
And everybody thinks he's the abuser.
Yes.
Why?
And it's actually turned into a joke.
Yes.
At most cases, people will be laughing like, "Oh,
Yes.
you're abused
Yeah.
by your wife."
Men
Oh,
get
come on, man.
mocked.
Yes.
Men get mocked for complaining about abuse. Even if your wife is a professional boxer and she beats you up, you get mocked for
Losing to
reporting.
your wife.
And why is it? And people think that no, the reason for this is not about the strength advantage that men have. No, the reason is because there is a recoil effect of patriarchy systems.
Right.
And I'm going to break it down.
Yeah.
Custom. We're talking of custom, how custom influences abuse in relationships, right? Now, when you come from a society where men are taught to be dominant and women are taught to be submissive, regardless, you cannot divorce, you cannot do this. And men are taught that they must be dominant and you must suppress your emotions. Like I always say, emotions cannot be suppressed, they should be addressed
Yes.
because it's like energy.
Yes.
Emotions is like energy, you can't destroy it. It
Yes.
can only change from one form to the other.
But of course, by addressing the emotions, it must be done in a place where it shouldn't be done on the spot. Because
Yes.
sometimes when emotions run
Yes.
wild, we will not be able to control it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. However, you must not dismiss or suppress any emotion.
Yes.
Because when you grow in a society where men are taught to suppress their emotions, there is a setback to that. And what is it? The only natural response those kind of men have is anger.
Yes.
Men who are taught that they shouldn't express their emotions, they should suppress it and all of that. Their only natural response becomes anger. That is why you see some men, when some men are broke,
They're angry.
they are angry. Instead of them to be sad.
Because
When they are frustrated,
but not the reason
they
why
get angry.
when they're broke, they're angry because of they're hungry to make money.
Yes.
Mama.
Okay, that's a beautiful way
Let's
to look at it.
hashtag that. Yes.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. But what I'm trying to say, the natural response of a man who always suppresses emotions is only anger. And when you are in a relationship with a woman, you are always angry, right? When this anger comes into a relationship, what happens to the woman? She starts to fear.
Yes.
That's why a lot of women don't respect their husband. They are just scared of their husband.
Product of your environment.
Yes.
That's,
If she stays in that fear long enough, right? If that woman stays in that relationship, that fear long enough, what happens? She might resist one day or the other.
yes.
It could be sexual abuse. She's going to deprive you of sex. It could be verbal abuse. She's going to talk to you in some disrespectful way, right?
Yeah.
And then you respond with what? Physical abuse. And when you do that, automatically you are in jail or she's filing a divorce, taking your kids, taking your money and all of that. And if you come out to say, oh, that woman is this, nobody's going to listen
No
to
one
you.
listen because
So that is how customs, patriarchy systems, some of these old cultures, this is how it affects abusive relationship that
Yes.
the average person doesn't really sit and think about.
Yes.
And most men now have no problem with revising our culture. Why? Because it favors us. I mean, in the beginning, it favors us. If you look at it from the surface,
Hi Abdul. Hello.
patriarchy system favors us. You understand? And that is why we just want it to remain like that. We don't want to address any concerns and all of that.
Yeah.
I think this is where liberal feminism comes in and say, okay, some things should be handled. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that custom and tradition should be tossed out the window. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I think that we cannot keep cutting the head of the fish and the tail of the fish when we now have a bigger pot.
Yes. That's
Because at the end of the day, like I just explained, there is a recoil effect
That's right.
that will affect us as men
Yes.
in society.
Yes. And do you guys think that men experience abuse just as much as women?
of course. Why not? It's just that we hear more of the ladies than the men because men, like you said, no, men
They
don't.
won't
They,
talk
you
much.
won't say. You just keep quiet.
Yeah.
Of course, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I want to ask you guys online who's watching us, have you experienced a form of abuse or a form of abuse that you are aware of, especially for men and women who's watching us as well. And if you want to jump on as well, we are also open for calls. Shah says resentment. Perfect. If you have like something to share as well, please just jump on the call. Give us a call here. Our moderator will let you in, and then we all can have a proper discussion about what you think about the abuse and some of the stuff that you went through as well. Because this is not a very easy topic to talk about, but it's something that many people don't really talk about as much. So we want to shed some light onto that. And we have a trivia question, which is if someone is being abused repeatedly in a marriage, but the culture, religion, or family strongly discourages the divorce, what would you do? I think this is such a brilliant question.
To be very honest, I think that personal values should come before cultural values.
Yes, me too.
It might come off a bit rebellious to say that, but if you look at it, your personal values are a function of your cultural values.
Yes, it's deeply ingrained.
Is deeply ingrained. How you grow up.
Yes.
You understand? So I don't think it's something that is
Correlates.
going against each other, right? However, the fact that something is cultural doesn't mean it is right.
Yes.
And again, if you said you're going through an abuse, but based on your culture, you can't go through a divorce. There's no cultural bylaw that say that. Is there any
There is.
say that
There
you-
are countries that women cannot utter the word divorce.
Really?
There is.
really?
Aku, search it for us.
Yes.
Our
Yeah. Can you help to search for us? Which countries?
I
is
would-
not
I-
There
yet-
I-
are countries that are against divorce, solely against divorce, right?
Even though you're
Really?
going
I've
through
not really known
abuse,
that.
you're going through whatever,
Yes,
and you
there
you
are
can't-
countries
so
you can. Okay, there might not be bylaws, okay, that say you cannot fight for divorce, but women are shamed, men are mocked
Mm.
when they complain of abuse. Women are shamed when they complain of abuse. So sometimes the success of a woman is a function of what? How much she has kept her marriage or how long she has kept her marriage. So a woman could be very rich, but in the eyes of society, they are looking at her and feeling like, look at her, she couldn't even stay in husband's house for 1 year.
Mm. Mm.
So there might not be bylaws or policies
Philippines are some of the countries that are
against
divorce. Wow.
Look at it.
But
He has just listed countries that are against divorce strictly by law, right? Right? Now imagine the societal perspective, even if you break that law. Just imagine you
it's
break
like
that
this.
law.
It's like this.
It's like from the Bible.
Brian,
actually,
even in
you know-
Nigeria,
yeah,
even in
actually-
Nigeria,
actually,
Brian, do
no
you
one-
understand that divorce is not societally
Good.
accepted?
Understand that, but
Do you
it's like this.
understand?
No country is actually okay, or nobody is okay to go through a divorce because of you get married, you're not praying to get divorced. So every country they're always against divorce, but you need to go in depth to check before there must be something for you to go into divorce because of the word the this thing that divorce doesn't just come that if going to marriage you should divorce.
Yeah.
If you're going to marriage, it must be something that will cause divorce,
Yeah.
meaning that abuse must be part of it before you can go into that. But if you just say that all countries are highly against divorce, all countries, everyone's against that. You get me? But so there's no possible way that even though you're going through an abuse and your country will make or whatever culture will make you still stay in that situation because of culture will make you stay for you to go through abuse so you don't get divorced. No, it's not possible. There's no such.
No, I think you're
That's an
missing.
interesting
You're missing something. It is one thing to say a country is against divorce,
Culture.
right? Or culture is against divorce. Then it's another thing that the culture doesn't. It might not be strictly against it, but it is frowned upon.
Yes.
Yes, they can
And
be.
if it is frowned upon, that means when a woman divorces, right,
with reasons.
with reasons best known to her, but society don't care.
No, that is it. Now, there's no way society don't care. That's why abuse. That's why all this abuse and all comes in.
Let's get very factual.
Yeah. We
Let's
can.
get-
We can.
Virg,
Yes.
if you hear that this woman divorced her husband,
Mm-hmm.
does it not ring something on your mind?
I mean, it definitely does.
What
It definitely.
what does it
does-
ring?
So, like
Bro,
for me, if
it-
I find out that this woman is divorced, first thing that's gonna come to my head is why.
Yeah.
What
Why?
happened? Is it the fault of the man or is it the
Yes.
fault of the lady? And of
But-
course, if
but
we
it's
speak
just-
to that
it's just
person,
something that-
it's never the fault of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just something that is frowned upon.
Yes.
So, and as long as it is frowned upon by society,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
it is one reason why a lot of women might choose to remain and be submissive, therefore prioritizing endurance.
No, but he said something now. When you get someone divorced, first thing that will come to your head is what's the reason? What's the reason? Meaning there must be something.
Yeah.
You can't just divorce without something happening.
Yes.
So it's something that's happening. It's this because abuse are in different categories in so many ways.
Yeah.
So these ways that are divided, this is the reason why you be thinking which of them cause this divorce.
Correct. Correct. Shah also says that if a man realizes that he is in a toxic emotional relationship but cannot leave because his partner is manipulating him over past mistakes, what should he do? I think that's a very interesting question to ask as well. But we're going to divert into that in a little bit because personally, I think there is a shift. I can actually see a shift happening when it comes to speaking about divorce, right? There used to be a common connotation that when you speak about divorce is taboo. The elders would be
Yes,
like, no, 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 don't say
yes,
stuff like this.
yes.
No, 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 do not talk about
No
divorce.
matter what you're going through, try fix it.
Yes, but
You
these
shouldn't
days,
hear.
these days, while that statement still remains, no matter
Yeah.
what you're going through,
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
But there is an openness to actually
Yes,
try and understand.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
why? What's happening? Oh, really? Is this person really like that? Wow, maybe you should go see you should go seek help. You know, like now the conversation is steering from no to maybe you should go and see a professional about this, and then maybe the professional can give you advice. Maybe the advice is to leave. Society will actually say, okay, if the professional says this is this. For me, I will say like this is the advice that people normally give. I would always say no, let's not get divorced. But if the profession said that this is the best thing to do, I think it is the best thing. So they have come to be accepting.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
within my
So-
own culture as
so-
well.
Yes. So that's why I think generally, not just here in Malaysia, right? Generally, I think that the world is beginning to question certain cultural norms.
Yes.
And it is very important because, like I said, there is a ripple and recoil effect of every patriarchy system, every form of patriarchy system. Because don't forget, a woman's submissiveness to her husband, ultimate submissiveness, regardless of what she's going through in the marriage, is a function of patriarchal system.
Right. Because women is below men.
Yes. So it came from there.
Yeah.
So that means I was right, and when I said women, they're below men.
I mean, right in that perspective
we're
of
looking
why
at-
this form of abuse is becoming more and more prevalent. Yes.
Yes. And don't forget, one of the recoil effect of ultimate, I call it ultimate submissiveness, that a woman has to be submissive to you regardless, even if you're beating her up every morning. One of the recoil effect is the abuser become more enabled.
Enabled in what way?
If you beat a woman up today because you felt, oh, she did something wrong, right? And you got away with it, what will stop you from doing it again tomorrow?
Yeah. The hand that beats
That's why I
the
said-
hand that beats you will always beat you the next time.
Of course, that's why I said we are direct beneficiary of patriarchal system. However, I've already mentioned the recoil effect, and that recoil effect is what we see in social media today. A woman fight for divorce, take your kid, and
Your
there was take your
So-
house
so-
and your property. And there was even this news I read, I think sometime last year, where the UK police announced that Nigerian women in the UK, African women in the UK, should stop calling the cops on their husbands. And they are tired of those civil cases. And it's not a police matter.
Sorry, you said something
Really?
right now.
And of course, a lot of men have been deported back to Africa through
I'm so sorry.
that.
Can I before I forget
Yes,
something? You said
yes.
something. You said a hand that beats.
He said it.
You said
I said it.
we beat. We
We'll
continue.
continue. Of course.
So you meaning that if you're an abuser, you will always be an abuser.
Of course.
If you don't feel remorseful about it, if you feel
Whether
like
you
it's the
feel
right thing,
remorseful or you don't feel remorseful, an abuse. an
You
abuser will
continue.
always
You
be an
continue.
abuser.
You can't. That means you're trying to tell me you can't change.
We will come to that.
we will come to
Let's stick to
and
that topic.
I know that's it.
We'll come
when,
to that.
When,
We'll come
when,
to
when,
that.
when you because before I forget,
We'll
that's
come to
how
that.
say,
Yeah.
that means you can't change.
We will
I
come
think
to that.
That
I
means
think to a certain
and
extent
the
you
same
can't.
you can't or you can.
to a certain extent, I don't think you can. You can change.
But the same thing you guys were telling the last time that if you're going through this thing, you should seek professional help of a
Therapy
therapist.
or a
Yeah.
But
relationship
now,
coach.
if you that means the person how would the therapist help the person to change?
Ryan, you've
Awareness.
never been to
Awareness.
therapy.
I've not been, and I don't wish to.
The therapist
because
did not
of
come
you know
today.
why?
If
Because
they
of you know
came,
why?
we
You know
could have
why?
gotten this conversation
Should I tell you why? Because
But we'll
I
come-
said I want you guys to understand that someone can't change another person. Only you can change yourself. So even though you visit a therapist or
got a
whatever,
call?
I don't think that is the therapist that is changing the person. It's the person that is changing himself because he's aware what he has done based on his own.
I read it.
He's feeling remorseful not what the therapist or whatever therapist is saying to him. Because you should know that only you can change yourself,
Yes.
not another person.
Yes. See, what you
Okay.
just brought up is called awareness.
Okay.
If a person is remorseful, that means he is aware of his actions
So he's aware
Yes.
on his own.
on his own.
He knows. Then how does the therapist, what is the role of that therapist when the person can also be aware on his own and change?
So the role of the therapist, like I may not be the best person to talk about this because I'm not a therapist, but what I understand is this. People who go to therapy, most of the time they are not aware of what has happened and how it's played out to the other person. One. Two, if they are aware, they will still fall back into the same cycle because the same triggers are happening. The same things are triggering them and they got no control over it. They are aware that they can get violent, but they cannot stop the violence from happening because maybe partner has done something and it just kicks them into the same emotion. So the therapy will play that situation out to help you understand your triggers.
Good. That now again, I want you guys to understand that people can change on their own. Not you saying that if you're an abuser, you will always be an abuser, or if the hand that hits a lady will hit a lady and again
Okay,
and
I
again.
want
What
to-
if you hit a lady the first time and you realize that I've made this mistake and I don't want to make this kind
Brian,
of mistake
There are a lot of
again?
Brian,
cases like that.
listen,
There's actually a lot of cases like
listen, Brian, we talked about this the last time. We already spoke about this. I was able to prove that most human beings do not have what it takes to even self-reflect. And I said there are different stages to this. The first stage is to question your feelings. And the second stage is to gracefully and humbly admit. Wait.
Okay.
Let me go back to the first stage.
Yes.
Questioning your feelings. You are angry with someone or you are jealous of someone. Nobody is coming to question you why you're jealous with that person. But while you are resting on your bed, you are asking yourself a question. Why am I angry with this guy? He didn't really do anything offensive to me. Or why am I jealous of this guy? I also have my own life. Our lives are not, these things are not natural for human beings. Do you understand? This is not natural human tendencies. Human beings don't sit down and question themselves. It's a rare thing.
Preach.
Wait, that is number one level. Number two level, which is an advanced level, is the ability for someone to humbly and gracefully admit he's wrong. Bro, if you have 10 people in this room, only one or two persons at most
Can you do it? Can
would
you
admit
you're
they are wrong. We
know-
admit, let me finish, bro. We admit they are wrong without external force. Even when there is external force, people will still resist and say, no, I wasn't wrong. I'm justified. Even if generally it's not justifiable, but this is what happened in my mind. And as long as I feel this way, I'm right. So coming back to that, thinking that, and why is it called an abuser? Is because under normal circumstance, it doesn't even have the ethics and morality of a decent human being. That's why he's an abuser.
Right.
So how can you trust that kind of person to sit down and reflect and tell himself that, oh, that woman I beat yesterday was uncalled for, and I'm sorry, or I will not do it again?
I think that is also to a certain extreme, but
No.
we're gonna get back to that. What do you have? What do you have to
No.
reply to that, Brian?
Why?
And let me add this. Sorry.
Come on now.
Okay.
Let
No,
Brian
no,
speak.
no,
No, let me add
you,
this.
You add, let me add because
Okay, let me
I'm
add
just
this.
saying
You have
what he's saying is a no to me.
Okay,
because
let me
what,
add
you can't
this.
say that he's an abuser. He's called an abuser. Because he's an abuser, he can't reflect. You can. So people don't make mistakes.
Do you know the meaning of being? I think we defined this already in the
Of
last
course.
episode when we said the circle of abuse is the beginning where there's confusion, and then the tension itself. I mean, the action itself, where
Yes.
there is rage, outburst, and then you have the affection.
Yes.
An abuser is a manipulator.
Yes.
An abuser loves control.
Yes.
I said in the last episode, if an abuser is a carpenter, his hammer is what? Fear. So an abuser is called an abuser because he loves control. He loves manipulation. So even that, oh, I feel sorry that you claim that man failed is also part of the manipulation. It is the circle of abuse. After abusing the woman, this man goes back to now say, oh, I'm sorry, I love you, buy her flowers. That's the affection part.
Yes.
The intermediate part. That is what the woman we hold on to. That is why trauma bonding comes into question, because the woman feels like, oh, he's not really a bad person, it's just his anger. Why? Because of that small hope of affection, that small hope of connection.
Yes.
So you sitting down and telling me that an abuser will sit down and reflect, self-reflect,
won't you
and
reflect?
say, oh, what I did is wrong, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be this woman anymore. Bro, that is not obtainable in reality.
Yes, Kitty left a few good comments on TikTok. So she mentions, so she did say, she started off with, people always have a preconceived notion that a woman is at fault when she gets divorced. That was earlier when we were talking about divorce in different countries. And Kitty sort of mentioned a little bit about this current topic. When an abuser abuses the victim repeatedly, they reinforce the mentality that they own the victim. Interesting. The therapist offers a certified, non-biased view and insights into why the abuser behaves like that. And the therapy doesn't change you per se, but brings awareness and tries to enlighten. And lastly, the strong majority of people struggle with accountability and then will make their own bubble where they aren't at fault, thus not actually realizing the mistakes.
Yes, in line with what she said, which was what I was going to say before I was interrupted, right? The essence of the therapy.
He hasn't had a chance.
No, not me. I will still stick to my own.
He said his piece, and I explained
That's
why
good.
I disagree completely that an abuser will change on his own without any major external force or without the help of a therapy. And I just want to drop this before you continue. The essence of a therapy cannot change you. Only you can change yourself.
Good. That's
Now,
why. So
let me
why-
tell you
if-
the work
if-
of a
so
therapy.
what-
Let me
see,
tell you the work of a therapy.
Now, you know what I'm saying?
Brian, can I just tell you the work of a therapy? And
Okay.
then I give you in 2 seconds. 1, 2, it's over. Okay. I tell you the work of a therapist. This is how it works.
Yeah.
A therapist is not going to change you.
Of course.
But this is what happens. A therapist will show you a different perspective. That's why I call this Wet Waters podcast a therapeutic podcast. Because here, we are not coming here to talk ourselves. What we're doing here is we are exploring different perspectives. Because while someone is sitting at home and watching Wet Waters and seeing different perspectives, it might help consolidate his own perspective or contradict his perspective. And hence, that person will feel like, okay, I need to
Yes.
make some adjustments, some check and balances.
A very
you
good
know?
coach
So,
mentioned.
yeah.
A very good coach says this, that the problem with humanity is that many people live in their own perception.
In their own
And
perception.
not enough on perspective.
That's why I
Perspective
said-
is
yes.
different types of
Yeah.
perception
Yes.
that we can see, that we
Yes.
can question ourselves. Is this right? Is this wrong?
Yes.
Is this the truth? or
That's
not?
why I
so
said
maybe
it
Brian,
is-
you do this. You do this very naturally, that you question perspective and you be like, maybe this person can change because you see that happening, and I think you can see that for yourself.
Because I talk based on the way I do things and the way I'm not other people. I'm myself. So if I'm talking based on me and what I do and what I know I've done, to think and reflect on if I've done something wrong. I can reflect, I know I've done this wrong or something, because we're not perfect, you get me? But you just saying that someone beating someone will always be the person, and I won't just say that, because possible persons, people can change.
Yes.
Yes.
You can-
So I would say that based on me, I can hit you today and tomorrow I will never touch you. Because I will know what I've done is wrong. Because I'll reflect on what I just did. That's why I've never done it. Because I reflect before doing it.
You are talking like someone that does it every day.
No, because I'm talking out of I'm saying
In line,
because
right?
the same way I'm thinking, because I reflect before doing things. That's why it hasn't happened. But some people, they do it before reflecting. So I'm bringing the both sides together.
I understand you are exploring a different perspective, which I totally understand.
What's perspective?
And since we are here, since we are talking about whether an abuser can really change,
It can
the
change.
first thing that I would say is, before we talk about the essence of therapy and all of that, the first thing is, what is the root cause of that abuse? Is it drug related? Is it alcohol related? You understand?
Yes. Kitty
Is
says
it
it's
a mental
addiction.
problem? Is it a mental issue?
In some
Is
cases.
it mental health?
In some cases. Yes.
So imagine a man beats his wife up
Mm.
as a result of substance abuse that he's into, right? And he's always physically abusing her, right? This guy is telling me that man will sit down one day while still taking those drugs and tell himself, oh, I shouldn't be this woman anymore.
I think
This is
that's
why
an
I
extreme.
said you might call it an extreme, but there's a lot of domestic violence that's a function
Substance.
of substance abuse.
Yes.
A lot.
Alcohol
lot.
abuse is
Alcohol
one of the
abuse,
most
yeah.
prevalent.
There are lots of
forms
men who beat their
abuse.
wife every now and then
Under
when they
influence
get
of
drunk.
alcohol.
Yeah.
So that kind of person, you can't tell me he's gonna sit down and stop being an abuser. So these are some of I put this together.
But
When you say
don't
if someone
you
can
think
change.
the person can just the same gets influenced by alcohol and
Sometimes
it
even
changes,
personal-
it changes into not to do it again?
There is
The
a
same-
moment where they say they found Jesus. Example. There is such moments.
Yeah,
And that is manipulation.
Is it manipulation?
how
that
you
is
sh- that is it.
manipulation.
How you should manipulation?
Bro, come on. Any substance that make you behave in a certain way will not give you a different behavior at some other point.
What about people who go for, like, example, AA, Alcohol Anonymous, where they actually rehabilitate themselves after being, so deep in substance abuse, example, alcohol. People are addicted to alcohol, and then they go to, Alcohol Anonymous, and they completely change.
Stop what?
Stop alcohol.
Of course, if you stop alcohol is the root cause of his abuse. So the abuse will stop.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is you can't keep taking that same substance and think that your action will be different.
Right. So you cannot change if you're still under the same.
If you're still under this substance
environment.
abuse, how could you change? Or let's say personality disorder.
This is
Someone
a completely different
bipolar.
topic now.
Let's say someone is bipolar. No, it's one of the subtopics, right?
Actually, it is, but we haven't gotten there yet. But okay, you know what? It's okay. Guys, we're going to take a quick segue to say that the sponsor of this episode is Wet Waters. That's right, guys. If you are keen on getting your brand seen in the podcast space, especially for the Wet Waters Relationship Podcast, guys, don't forget, reach out to us, send us a DM, send us an email, or, leave a comment in the comment section, and we will get back to you with more updates on how you can also be a sponsor for this show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this podcast is brought to you by the Relationship Podcast by Wet Waters. And our goal in Wet Waters is to really create an awareness and to give you a therapeutic insight into some of the very crucial topics that we're talking about. And that's our purpose of the Wet Waters podcast. So if you're enjoying this podcast, leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and we will love to take in more sponsors, and we will love to work with you for more episodes to come. So now, let's get back into our discussion. We're going to move into the next topic, which is influence of family and childhood on abuse. This one is so important for me, so important, because studies suggest that children who witness or experience domestic violence are more likely to perpetuate the cycle of abuse in their own adult relationships, highlighting the intergenerational transmission of abusive behaviors, or what some people call, quote unquote, what is it called? Generational sin. So my question to all of us, and even in the chat here, is, do people who grow up in abusive households become abusers, or do they become victims? Let us know what you think in the comment section. I'm gonna throw this to Brian. Brian, what do you think?
You know me, I'll go in another way.
Unorthodox.
I'll go another way.
He's a southpaw.
Okay, you said would they be an abuser or victim? What if they are none of those because of they've seen it because of they grew up seeing abuse within their parents when they were young.
I actually have
So-
friends who are like that.
So now they know what the outcome is.
Yes.
So once they're in a relationship, they don't want any of that they've seen previously. Once they get in a relationship, they won't be into the abuser because of they know how to handle.
Why are you
Yes.
talking so quiet?
Yeah, why are you
Because
talking
of-
now?
No, because of no, I'm
Don't be
not.
I'm
now.
gossiping.
Don't be scared.
No,
Talk
it's-
into your mind.
that's it for me. They won't be any. They won't be an abuser and they won't be a victim because they know how to handle things.
But there are certain realistic, or there are certain stats that suggest that domestic violence within a same household was actually found from when child or kids being raised in an environment of violence. in an environment of abuse. And these kids becomes the abuser as they grow up, regardless whether male or female. Okay, what do you think of that?
And okay, will say that they'll definitely be an abuser because of whatever they see growing up, that's what they go with. Oh yeah, start.
Okay. You know, I always look at everything through a psychological lens.
Yeah.
And I would say the effect of childhood on abuse in relationship. Number one, which is the most important, in my opinion. Number one is attachment style.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment style.
Please explain. Dive deep into that.
Yeah. The attachment style of a child with the parent has been proven to be the same attachment style that child will have with his partner.
So,
in a
example,
relationship.
like if they see their parents consistently fighting in an environment where the mother is trying to fight for the attention from the father, and the father abuses the mother in relation to that, so it becomes a very dramatic relationship, very dramatic, attentive style.
Yes,
towards a partner.
actually,
do they actually take out?
yes, actually, that is just one
One, yeah.
superficial. I would rather call it superficial.
Yeah.
But what I actually mean is the attachment style a child has with the parent, with the father, with the mother. That's the same attachment style he will have with his partner.
His partner.
Yes.
So, for example, there was a time my friend came with the daughter, right, to my condo, right? And I was living at a very top floor back then. And the child, for the first time, because they live in a landed house, and the child went to the balcony. I was looking over, and the child was scared. She was very scared.
Really?
Yeah, because she had never gotten to that kind of height because they live in a landed house, and this was a condo with over 20 floors, right?
Yeah.
Just so I was shocked. So I asked, why is she reacting like that? So they were like, oh, this is the first time she's coming to this type of unit that is this high, 20 something floors. And then I just looked at the parents. While I was so concerned about this child jittering, right? They are just there like they told the child, suck it up, stuff like that. So that child, what will happen to that child? That child will now learn that you cannot rely on people because the parents have brought her up in a way whereby she developed that attachment style, which is avoidant.
Right.
So that child will always feel like, no, I cannot rely on people. When I need some emotional support and all of that, people cannot be trusted.
Right. So that's where it
In
stems
the
from.
future, that child will grow up to be a man that is an avoidant. When his partner, his wife, or his girlfriend is trying to give him some emotional support and stuff, he's not interested. Trying to dialogue into deep emotional conversations is an avoidant.
Yeah.
So I think the attachment style is important. Actually, there are research studies that supports this
Right.
theory.
Right.
That the attachment that a child has with his parents is the same attachment style he ends up having with his partner.
I see.
So that is one way that childhood influences abuse in relationship.
I see.
Because sometimes, like we said, emotional abuse. Some guys, especially men are very guilty of this. Your girlfriend wants some emotional support, and you can just be dismissive. Being dismissive is emotional abuse now.
All right, guys. For those of us who are watching, if you have been dismissed, you might wanna see this curveball a little bit, but
Yes.
it's not exactly like a. I don't think. I think it's very easy to term and coin everything as an abuse, a form of abuse, because some people don't know how to handle things.
That is why it is important that we talk about the influence of childhood. Because we have the anxious, we have the avoidant, we have the disorganized, and we have the secured.
Yes.
A lot of people fall under avoidant, especially men.
Yes.
Research has it that a lot of women fall under anxious.
Yes.
A lot of men fall under avoidant. Okay? So if you don't have a secured attachment style from your childhood,
Yes.
guaranteed you will either be a victim or an abuser in a relationship. If you're an avoidant, you'll be an abuser.
Yes.
If you have an anxious attachment style, you most likely will be a victim because you will be someone who is always in need of reassurance.
Yes.
You will be in need of emotional support. So much that the man cannot keep up.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Brian, what do you have to say about that? But before we
yeah.
go, so Kitty says they have a higher chance of succumbing to their environment. It can be either or. There's always a chance that they won't be either, but the probability is higher because they grew up in this environment, thus normalizing these behaviors or being abuser or victims. And Kitty also says a daughter can be extremely submissive to their partner to a fault to avoid the potential of a bad reaction for their partner. Yeah, that's a very interesting way to share this. And last but not least, she says they normalize the extremes. So they think rage is normal, that hitting equates to love, etc. So this is when it comes to the influence of family and childhood abuse, right? So maybe you guys want to tell me about intergenerational trauma, how abusive patterns get passed down from one generation to another. I think you shared quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what you talked about just now.
Yes, yes.
When you see your parents fight every now and then,
Yes,
you end up growing up to
Yeah,
be a man that fights
yes.
with his partner.
What do you think on this, Brian?
I'll say the opposite. You be a man that don't fight.
Because you've seen your parents fighting, you don't want to be a person that fights.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because of you.
Is it
you've
easier?
gone-
Is it easier to
because
do evil than to do good, or other way around?
to do none of it?
Is it easier to do good or to do evil?
For me, it's easier to do good.
Sorry,
It's easier to do good.
Good. And again,
it's easier to do good.
yes, and
It's
again,
easier to do good.
And again, you see,
It's easier to do good.
Easier to do good.
Did you really think about it?
Yes. I mean, in
Now,
terms of my moral
should I-
compass,
I'm
it
I'm
will
not
allow
talking
me-
of you. No,
no, you
I'm talking
you
of
can't.
generally in the world.
You're not
Is
general.
it easier to
I'm not.
do?
I'm not the world.
No, Brian, listen to me. You are
I'm
you
not
are
the
you are
world.
old enough to understand how the world runs.
No, I'm not the world.
In the present
dispensation.
dispensation we are in, is it easier to do good or easier to do evil in the world we are in today?
Is it to do good?
It's
I would
easier
say,
to do
yeah,
good.
I would say because
Yeah.
of
Say that?
societal norms.
You also think so? It's
Yes.
easier to do good. Okay.
Yeah. If
All
you
right,
if you say
continue.
in terms of like complaining, it's easier to complain than to give a compliment. For
No,
example,
no. I'm not saying complain. I'm
Yes.
saying
good and evil.
listen. There is $2 million on this table,
Okay.
Okay.
What do I need to do?
and there is no security. There is no CCTV, no surveillance, nothing.
Mm.
Is it easier for people to walk by that money and not touch it, or touch it?
In human nature, they would want to touch it
So why are you saying it's easier to do good?
because I wouldn't do that.
No, I'm not talking of you. I said
Yes.
in this dispensation, in
Yes.
the world, the way the world runs, bro,
Yes.
is it easier to do good or to do evil? And you say it's easier to do good. And I just
Okay.
gave you one example.
Then it's so you're trying to say that.
Do you know why? So it's not easier for kids to watch parents that fight and now tend to be a kid that doesn't fight. It's
know-
not
you
easier.
know- you know-
It's the other way around.
you know-
Human proclivities is towards the negative than it is to the positive.
It's going. It's
Because
just,
That's why if you
survival
have a
instincts.
child, you give birth to a child. Don't teach the child anything. Leave that child to starve and watch how that child is gonna. Some way, if he has to take somebody's food to survive, it's natural survival instinct.
Survival
It's our prima characteristics.
you know when I'm talking.
So you cannot sit down
when
and
I'm
tell me
saying
that
this,
a man.
There are some things because we're on live and.
No, feel
and-
free to talk.
No,
man.
we're on live. It's aired. Everyone can say, but there's a kind of things we want to just say. But why I will stick to my points.
Yeah.
After this, I'll still let you know the reason why.
Okay, you tell me behind closed doors.
Yes, the reason why I will tell you that even though you grew up in a toxic
In a toxic and abusive home.
home or environment, that doesn't make you to be like that.
It doesn't necessarily make you. But we
It
want to
will-
look at what are the tendencies. Is it easier to be an abusive adult in your relationship or to be
do you think,
a healthy
do you
relationship?
think is it
You know?
easy to raise your hand and hit a lady, or is it easy to say something? I don't understand. Those are kind of when it comes to abuse now. When we're talking about this now, it's not you can't say that you growing up and watching your whatever you learn from your childhood, you grow up and you be like that. No.
I think what he's trying
No.
to say is in terms of consciousness. Right?
I
You
Your
won't.
guilty
It's not
conscience.
possible.
Yes, I understand where it's coming from. But what
Mama,
I'm
he
saying
understands gingers.
yes, I understand what it means and where it's coming from.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is there is a higher tendency that such a person will grow up to be an abuser or a victim rather than someone who runs a healthy relationship. And why do I say this? Because every human being is a function of nature and nurture. Nature is your consciousness, your conscience, your inherent nature. Why nurture is the environmental factors, the external factors, which is part of your father and your mother, what they are doing, what you're watching, what your uncles, your friends are doing. That's the nurture, right?
Yeah.
So every human
Then
being
what
comes from,
about what they're watching on TV?
that is also nurture. It's
yeah,
external.
yeah, it
So
affects.
anything
It
external
affects.
is nurture. Anything that is inherent is
Is nature.
nature. Okay. So we are all a function of nurture and nature, right?
That's a good.
And for me, I
differentiation
just feel
phrase.
like 50-50 on a
Yeah.
normal day.
Yeah.
However, because of natural human proclivities tend to be stronger towards the negative part of the spectrum. This is why when a child or a human being is exposed to a negative circumstance or environment, it is more likely to have a negative impact on that person than the positive. Like Oprah, she came from a home where her mother, she was raped by her uncle, her father went to jail, her mother died, something like that. If you read Oprah's story, really, really terrible. It is every parameters needed for a woman to go into prostitution or some reckless living.
Yet,
but no,
she turned her life around.
turned it around, right? But how many operas do we have? If we had, we would have been having millions of black women.
So do you think?
are
No,
billionaires.
no.
Do you understand?
No.
So are
So
those
you-
are those extremes in that sense? Are those like some rare cases in where people actually
Yes,
turn it around?
and yes,
You
and
know-
like I always say, Brian, I will always
You know
say,
why? You know why
an
you know about?
exception-
You know why you know about Oprah?
Brian,
Because
Brian,
of Oprah
Brian,
is who
listen,
she is now. That's
Brian,
why you know her
listen,
story. Do
Brian,
you know how
listen.
many of those people in that kind of situation who you don't know?
And I guarantee you, there is a higher number of people in that situation that turned out to be prostitutes and, nonchalant in society than those that turned those stories around and became someone.
How do you know?
I guarantee you, check your statistics. I'm a factual person. And let me
I-
tell you,
please
Brian, I
check.
want to say this. If you see,
What
if you,
statistics?
if you see a black man on the
Who
road,
said it?
I
if you
said,
see a black
what
man on the road,
statistics?
if you see a black man on the road, what comes to your mind? Oh, that guy is of African origins, right? Someone could just come up and say, oh, Africans are black. But someone else will come with a counter argument and say, oh, but I know one person from South Africa is a white man, Elon Musk. Okay, now I want to ask, does that mean Africans are not black?
No.
So that means an exception does not invalidate a generalization.
Right.
Just because
Right.
you pick one or two persons and say they turn the story around, then you now say, therefore, everybody in that situation is bound to turn their story around.
I
No,
think what Brian's
no,
trying to say is
this
the
is like this.
possibility. The possibility.
no, there
of-
is a possibility, but like I
See
said,
the-
an
see the
exception does
example
not
he's using,
invalidate
Africa
a generalization.
And see, it's clear that Africans are black.
The
It's-
majority of
Yes,
them.
it's majority.
Of course.
So now, how would you use that in this what we are talking about? Like
No, Brian is
Oprah.
the same.
People-
All I'm trying to say is, in a situation where the vast majority of outcome is negative, you can't take a few positive outcomes
How do you
and
know?
expect it to invalidate
No,
the
you know what I'm
negative
trying to say. Like you
generalization.
can't tell me that because of your upbringing, that will make you determine this how you're going to be in life. Because of Oprah, you know about Oprah because of she's famous.
Let's stop talking about Oprah. Come back to,
Oh, okay. We know about anybody because the person is famous.
Yeah.
Well, there are
Yeah, we
people.
listen-
There are a
we
lot
listen to
of
the stories.
people
Yeah.
that they went through a rough upbringing, like when they were young. But right now, they're changed. They're not. They don't.
course,
They don't
I
listen. They
understand.
don't practice what they learned or how they were brought up.
But research has it that children learn what they see, not what they are told.
Research. Yes. Okay. Research.
It's not even
So-
research, it is experience.
Yes. So does research tell you that everything research says is right? What do you think?
Research is empirical data. What has happened over the course of time.
Okay. Now.
So let's not focus on that.
the
Come
thing-
back to your conversation that
The
a
se-
child who is exposed to a toxic and abusive home
He
will grow up.
not following the same footstep. Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Yes. For me.
Okay, for you.
Okay, so
right.
personally for me, I actually know someone who grew up in an environment that was, very, I wouldn't call it abusive, but it was a very loud environment. You know, the
Yes.
parents were always
Like
shouting
toxic
and
in somewhere.
screaming.
Yeah. Yes.
So he grew up with that in mind, and when he got married and stuff like that, he is actively telling himself, no matter how bad my wife can get, I would never repeat
Exactly.
the same mistakes that my
Exactly.
father has repeated.
Good.
So, which is exactly what you're
What
saying.
he's saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Exactly what
And
I'm
I,
saying.
So that's
and
a-
like I
that's a
said,
real
Brian,
thing.
Verge.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Okay, like I said, yes, there are cases like that, and
Yes.
I guarantee you that yes. some of us even come
But
from
what
homes
you're
that-
guaranteeing that the cases are
No.
less.
By that way.
That the ones that will follow the other part are more. That's I know you didn't dispute the fact that there's no case like that.
Yeah, there are
but
cases
you're trying to
that.
say the case
But what I'm
are
saying
less.
is the normal prima tendency is survivor.
Yes.
And survivor is ultimate, right? So that is a proof that man will do anything, to survive. And what does this say about what we're talking about, right? If a man who was predisposed to such a toxic or abusive home, he grows up, he has a good wife, and this wife is all that a man could dream of, right? A good wife material. Of course, it might not be prude to abuse her, okay? It might not be. But trust me, realistically, a lot of men are in marriages and relationships where your wife talk, your wife will always push you to that point and you hold yourself and stuff.
So
right?
now-
right? So imagine that man comes from a home where there was physical abuse and toxicity. Do you think that man is more prone to control his anger and not to reply with a good slap?
It's possible you can.
It is possible.
Yeah.
It's possible, but
It can.
do you think that tendency is higher than him actually losing it? And
Of
he has
course
had
it's
the,
not.
the
Why-
trauma from
Why
the
would
upbringing.
you? Why
and
would you
releasing
think?
that
Why
slap.
would you think that because of that he will lose it? Why don't you think he wouldn't lose it?
No, I'm telling, and I've given you my reasons.
Yes.
But let's move from here. But I've given you my reasons because it's more natural to do evil than to do good.
What do you guys think? For those of us who are online,
I
do
still
you
don't- I
think
still
that
don't go
is
with it.
okay?
If you don't go with it, it's okay.
Yeah. What do you think if you're online
Oh,
watching?
I agree
Is
to
it
disagree,
more?
right?
Is it more natural for people to do good or to do evil? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Now we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is called manipulation tactics. Now this is something that we spoke about in the previous podcast, but this one we're diving really deep into it, which is called abuser playing the victim game. So research indicates that 72% of perpetrators use Darvo tactics. What is Darvo tactics? We're gonna dive right into that. When confronted about their harmful actions. Okay, so Darvo is deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. So basically, what happens is, let's say for example, I abuse you, I give you a slap, and then instead of me admitting to me, beating you, I would say yes, I did it. It's because it's your fault. You did it this way. You did it, and that transpired to me hitting you. Very, very good topic to talk about because for some people they believe disciplining involves slapping or beating up their partner, where people would think it's an abuse. Certain people think it's a form of discipline. So what happens when the abuser actually flips the scripts and claims to be the victim? What really happens?
No, you want to talk?
Yeah, you want to see?
Please carry on here. Because
What's the question again? Sorry.
So the question is, what happens when the abuser flips the script? So let's say I beat you, and then I flip the script and say that it's your fault.
Yes, actually, that is a natural tendency of an abuser because in the previous episode, we treated that an abuser uses manipulation and control.
Yeah.
And manipulation is actually a very good example of manipulation is gaslighting.
Gaslighting, of course.
If I do something wrong and you complain about it and I make you feel like something is wrong with you to be complaining, you're not supposed to complain. So I think that manipulation, like I said, is one of the tools
Yeah.
with which an abuser.
Yeah.
So actually, if you're not manipulating someone, you have not even started your abuse. Because abuse in itself, understanding the concept of abuse, like I said in our previous episode, it's a cycle. The cycle is the tension, the confusion, and then the act of the abuse itself, and then followed with an intermittent affection period where somebody just sits down there and tell you, someone who just finished beating you up mercilessly comes back with a flower or takes you out on a dinner with black eyes and all of that. So I think that manipulation is part of the circle of abuse
Yes.
because he wants you to stay.
Yes.
You understand?
Kitty says the abuser is gaslighting and conditioning the mind of the victim. Very much aligning to what you you said as well. Abuse starts mentally, whether you realize it or not.
Exactly.
Even the threat of violence is enough to force submission.
Yes.
Threat of violence is enough to force submission. Wow.
Yes. And there is this
Kitty,
other.
you're so on point.
Yes.
Dude, like I want to ask you so many questions. If you want to come on call, let us know and join
Someone
us on
called
the call
in
as well.
just now, right?
They did,
Earlier
but
on.
then we
Okay.
lost them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say
White
is there is this epidemic, I would call it relationship epidemic, where for some reason a man and woman who are married or in a relationship have a kid, and then there is a divorce or separation, right?
Yeah.
And then the woman is using the kid against the husband. That is abuse.
Really?
That is psychological, emotional abuse.
Yes. Is it done in order to gain control of
In
the
order
man?
to gain control. And sometimes in order to get back at the man. So that is a form of abuse that people don't really see. I would always say children are not tools
Yes.
to be used against your partner. If you are a man and you are having custody of the children, you cannot use it against your wife.
Yes.
And if your wife is having the custody, you cannot use it against your husband or your ex-husband,
yes.
because then that is manipulation.
Yes, it is. We got Kitty online. So right now we're talking about what happens when the abuser flips the script and claims to be the victim. So I think you've shared some very interesting point. Example, abuse starts mentally, whether you realize it or not. Even a threat of violence is enough to force submission. Maybe Kitty, you wanna share a little bit about how did you come up with this statement? Like, what was your experience that you can that you can help us understand where you're coming from with this perspective?
In the last podcast, I shared that this was something that I personally experienced, right?
Yeah.
So upon self-reflection, I think that there was always a threat of violence coming from my previous partner. There was a threat, like you would see maybe him using verbal cues, saying that, okay, this is gonna piss me off. Don't make me get pissed off. Or maybe you would see maybe he would throw something, not at you at first, but maybe at something else. Punch the wall, throw the TV remote at the wall or something like that. So this already preconditions your mind to believing that this could escalate really bad. But also, while this is happening, this person is also giving you enough love to make you feel that this couldn't possibly happen to you. So when it does happen, then you start to make excuses. So I agree with Kay that, I think he was kind of going in line towards to where abuse starts in the mind first, So, and then when it gets to the physical, that's why you see a lot of people stay, because then it's already really murky. You've already been gaslighted and manipulated, and then you have to also consider the fact that this is somebody that you've already put on the pedestal. You're already in love with this person, and most of the times you don't want to see your relationship fail.
Yeah.
So that's just my POV.
Wow. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with her.
Yeah.
Of course, ladies will agree with you because you're at their side. So whatever,
No,
it's
no.
normal.
Listen,
and
listen,
of course you agree.
Listen, this Kitty, thanks for coming on, but Kitty countered a lot of the things I said in the 2 episodes ago, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at things from a psychological lens. If you want to know my opinion on anything, look at it psychologically, because I'm a realist and I'm an optimist
Right.
in some way. But most especially, I'm a realist. So if you look at things psychologically and in-depthly, not superficially. So some of these things, it's easy to just say this is good and this is bad when you look at it from the surface, right?
Yeah.
But when you take a critical look at stuff, right, then you begin to dissect some of the layers that makes a lot of difference.
Yes.
If you factor it into the equation.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So that's
I
why.
I have a factor to ask that is
Yeah.
is makeup sex a form of sexual abuse? Kitty, you want to share this as well?
Why?
I think this is interesting. It's an interesting concept because some people, they will say that after like a really really hard evening together, going through all kinds of stuff, even probably physical abuse, the makeup sex is like the best they've ever had. Is it a form of abuse?
It doesn't even have to be the best sex you've ever had. If you think about it, whenever you have sexual relations with your partner, most of the times you're building intimacy. So when your abuser now apologizes, starts pressing your buttons, and they know what to press to get you in the mood or whatever, it's again another form of mental manipulation to where this person is going to make you feel that I'm so sorry. We'll do everything that you like in that particular session. He's whatever it is that you want him to do, he's going to do it. Because he just wants to condition you to believe that I do still love you. I couldn't have sex with somebody who I don't love. That means why would I hit you if I'm not doing this out of love, right? Which comes back to reinforce that mentality that I'm only abusing you because I'm trying to teach you how to be a better person, which doesn't make sense because you're not here to parent to your partner. You're here to be a partner to your partner, you know? So intimacy is a form of manipulation, not it can be also abuse because I can say that there are situations where your abuser would probably force themselves upon you, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's a whole completely different.
He's
take.
going to say, I agree with her. But she has said it all.
Yeah.
If there is a coercion, there is a force involved, right? Of course, that's already sexual abuse against the consent, right? Or on the other hand, if this is something that this guy does without any remorse after the abuse, then this is just part of the abuse cycle
Yeah.
of tension, the action, and affection.
Yeah.
You are just in the affection. Someone beat you up mercilessly 2 hours ago, and now he comes and try to touch you, to sleep with you, and you say that is best sex in the world because that's trauma bonding.
Right.
Your mind is already messed up.
Messed up. Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Because this guy is just perpetrating a cycle of abuse,
That form
and
of
you
hope.
you are a good victim,
Yes.
a proper victim.
Yes. The
So makeup sex
the makeup sex
can
actually
be-
perpetuates the
Yes,
hope in the
yes.
mind. Like, oh, okay, I
is
still
yeah
have
you
hope in
hold
this
you
person.
hold on to that.
Yeah.
So makeup sex can be a form. I'm not saying in all cases, but if it is
No,
consensual,
if you're saying it's,
If it's
it
consensual.
has been all cases now.
if it's consensual,
Really?
no, it's not all cases. But you need to understand the intention. Number one, if he's not apologizing, if he's not saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," genuinely, I'm making amends. How do you know what is genuine? How do you know whether this guy is genuine? It's very simple. Look at the records. A man that beat you one time last year, maybe 10 months ago, and somehow he gives you a slap today and apologizes. That is reasonable. But a man that beat you last week, beat you 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and he has been apologizing every now and then,
It's a pattern.
it speaks for itself.
Yes. They're
So
not sorry because
you
they're
might be
sorry.
confused. Oh, is this person genuinely sorry?
Yes.
How do we know if he's genuinely sorry?
But-
If it's a repetition,
But what
then
if
you
at
know that
one point
this guy
he
is an
actually
abuser.
changed? What he changed, and he,
Bro, do you just want us to argue?
of course.
Because no, I don't want to argue. Because
What
we
do
have
we-
said
what
this
if
thing
the person
about
actually
this thing about change, bro.
No, that I like that part because I want you to understand that for you to know that people can just change.
You know what? Let's talk about change then. Kitty, you want to hang on for this if you want to? Yeah, if you've got time? Cool. Okay. So we're going to move into the last topic of the day, which is can abusers really change? Individuals, this is the statistics I'm going to share to start the conversation. Individuals with 7 prior felonies of domestic violence have a 61% probability of recidivism. Okay, 7 prior felonies. I think this is something that's a little bit on the not a common occurrence. I mean, among general people like us, I barely have a felony. Yeah, so like to see the probability there, I think it's someone that is on a cycle of felonies or wrong thinking, and they don't mind getting caught for it, which is why you get caught for it 7 times. In that perspective, can someone like that really change? Can somebody who is a convicted felon 5, 6, 7, even 8 times or more, can they really change?
Yeah, at the point he can.
This question is for you then.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the point he can also change if is aware That's self-awareness. Now, if that at a point, he can do it so many times, but you get to a point, maybe something can just touch him at that time, and you'll be like,
What touched him?
how would I know?
Jesus.
It's possible. Anything.
What touched him?
Anything.
No, Brian, you are giving us a theory.
Is it fine?
And
Anything.
you're not even
Anything.
backing it up
No.
with. I just asked you a simple. You say a man can
Okay,
change.
Jesus. Okay, like you said, Jesus
How
can
can
touch
Je-
him.
why-
Or maybe he's at that point now, he realized that he's getting too old and there's no point to him doing all this. He doesn't have much time in his hands anymore and he wants to change. And he said, I'm not going to do this again. So you tell him like he can't?
No,
Of
I said, you
course,
already
I
know
would
my
tell you,
answer.
he will change. He can change. My answer to you is that he can change.
Abusers can change for you.
Yes.
Okay, abusers can't really change.
Abusers can change. Like I said before, number one, they can change only if they know the root cause of the abuse.
Mm.
Like I said, a substance abuser, okay, who perpetrates domestic violence to his partner will never change if he continues to take that substance.
Yes,
That's number one.
yes,
You have to identify the root cause.
yes.
A bipolar person or a psychopath who has never received any mental health care
Mm.
will never stop abusing or
It's so
repeating the
dangerous for
cycle
bipolar.
of abuse.
If a person is bipolar and they've not received any sort of
Any
medical
form of
attention,
medical
it's
attention.
very dangerous.
How could you say that person will just automatically change? So I've given you 2 or 3 different root causes
Yes.
and how they could never change
Mm.
if those root causes are not addressed.
Not addressed.
And then let's say these are not the forms, because you could say, oh, you are just taking extremities,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the other side. What if it's not drug related, it's not mental issue, it's not alcohol and all of that? What if it's just a typical human being who is just perpetrating abuse in relationship? What if it's that scenario? Can the person change on their own? And I will go back to the first thing I said. Why does it qualify as an abuser? I said it in in the last episode. I said we must first identify who the abuser is. So for someone to qualify as an abuser, it means this person is already innately is into manipulation.
Right.
And why do people manipulate a situation? Why? Control.
For their own
It's
benefit.
just control. It's just control.
Yeah.
Because of their love for control,
Yes.
dominance.
I've
So-
got one last question to ask.
Yes. So in that situation, right? Somebody who loves control and manipulation, which is the reason why he's abusing his partner. Why do you think that person will just all of a sudden dislike control or dislike or be tired of manipulation? Can a person wake up in the morning and say, oh, I've manipulated people all my life and I've made all this money. I'm tired of manipulating. It doesn't work that way. I mean, technically speaking, it doesn't work that way. How can
It doesn't work.
you understand?
What's your
The
report?
only way,
Of course,
what
you said to
way
me is the opposite.
is probably, like I said, therapy.
Yeah.
If that person consciously makes up his mind to seek therapy,
Yeah.
right? That is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
But him saying that no therapy, no external force, and on this basis, we just decide to change. That's like a flying donkey, a unicorn.
We've got a scientist and we've got someone who's faith based.
Yeah.
I can tell.
That's in him. He keeps on saying datas and what. To me, it's life is not all about that.
I understand you're an idealist. You're not a realist. You're an idealist. You believe that the world should be in a certain way. But
Kitty.
bro, breaking news. The world is not that way. If you are being realistic, you understand that abuse is a very serious subject.
It is.
And the people who perpetrate abuse will not wake up one morning and just change.
That's true. I've got a last question. Maybe I can ask Kitty about this.
Because she keeps shaking her head. I want to hear what because the way she keeps nodding to what because K is I think is just on the direction of to support the ladies
No.
and for them to listen.
On the contrary,
and they keep
okay, I will say this as a disclaimer. I have always been accused to be a woman hater.
Really?
Yes. You know why?
Contradicts what you just
You know
said,
why?
man.
You know why? And we are going to come to that point
Yeah.
on this podcast
Yeah.
where I will be accused. You know why? When it comes to abuse in relationship, like I said before, we all focus on physical abuse.
Yes.
And that is why my conversation will revolve around physical abuse. And physical abuse is known to be perpetrated by men. That is why all my conversation is targeting men. But the day we have a topic that centers around women, women are going to blast me on this podcast.
I think we should have the next
Yeah.
one.
So I'm not supporting women. I'm not supporting anybody.
It's just the
I am an
facts.
objective
Yes.
realist.
Yes.
An
Yeah,
objective
I'm not
realist.
and
I'm-
anyone.
I
I'm
am
just
I
being
am-
realistic
Okay.
on how normal life is. Not going through reading of going through datas and what.
My
all
next
that.
question is
Real life experience.
My next question is: what are the signs that an abuser is actually changing versus just manipulating? What are the signs that you guys can actually tell that someone is actually changing versus just manipulating? I think you answered the question already.
Yeah, I
you got
answered
you
that.
got to see the frequency of it. You got to just look
frequency,
at the
yes.
past.
Yes, look
Maybe
at the
10
track
months ago it
records.
happened, and then after it happens again.
Yes.
Not that it's right. Not that
Yes.
it's right.
Yes.
But because of the time and space that it took for it to
Yes.
happen again,
You know
there
that
is a high
it's not a
possibility of
pattern.
it changing.
Yes,
That's right.
and it is not a pattern.
But if it's frequently happening over
That's a
and over and
pattern.
over, then it is a pattern that I
Yes.
think manipulation sets in tone. So let's end this with the last question, which is: if your partner has been physically abusive in the past, but now they've come back saying that they've changed, would you accept this as a genuine change or just another manipulation tactic? I'm gonna shoot this to Kitty. What do you think, Kitty? If you're cool with answering this.
Similarly, in the last podcast, I said that I find it really hard to believe that somebody can distance themselves from this habit. Because I mentioned earlier in the comments that if you view abuse as like an addiction to power and control, unless you have gone the extra mile by trying to make sure that you are fixing your mental health by going to therapy, maybe going to self-help classes or a support group and separating yourself from the environment, because I feel like your environment plays a significant factor too. If your friends are people who normalize aggression, normalize violence, normalize all these terrible things, it's going to be really difficult for you to be on the straight path. So most likely this person is going to fall back into the same pattern, even if in the first week or 3 weeks or the first month you have this intention of, I want to be a better person. But like an addiction, relapse is really, really easy to fall upon. And I can say this because I've seen this happen in my past relationship. I can see that there are certain times where I can see that this guy is struggling within himself to be better.
Yes.
And I'll be fair to him because this is what I saw. But because he was surrounded by people who supported or kind of apologized or justified his actions, like, oh, it's okay, she loves you, she'll forgive you. Oh, it's okay, this happened because you're like this, you were just stressed, it doesn't really necessarily help. So he kept on falling back into that.
Because it's the same individual. It's both of the same parties as well. So the similar triggers might just snap back very easily. It's not like two completely different individuals. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that, Kitty. What do you guys think? We've got 5 minutes before we have to wrap it up.
We're talking about how would you know if it's genuine?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
How would you know if someone who is an abuser, who left and then they came back and said that they have genuinely changed? Would you take them back?
Would you take them back?
Yeah.
I would say if you are not part of that change, don't take that person back. If you are not part
If
of
you
that
are not part of
change,
that change,
Yes.
don't take that person
How
back.
can you part of the change?
part
in
of
what
the
way?
change, for example, like I said, we still go back to the same subject, therapy. If your ex-boyfriend who has beaten you mercilessly, who has, gaslighted you in the past, and there has been no question to him being an abuser, comes back after 2-3 months or 2-3 years and say, oh, I'm a changed person. What is his certificate of change? You understand? What is your certificate of change?
I would say time.
This is too sensitive.
Yes.
This is too sensitive.
Yes.
It could be your life.
Yes.
I mean, we might be talking this casually, but this could be life or death for some people, right?
Because they
so-
come back with a vengeance.
They come back and you
Instead
don't even
of-
know what the person's coming. So that's why I
have
said you must be a part.
You've heard of
Let me finish now. He asked me the question
I just
to
want
give
say
my
no,
statement.
it's part- You've heard of some people, they're in a relationship with some person, and the person was abusive to them. They left the person, and the person went into another relationship, and the person is being the perfect guy for the next person.
I've heard of that.
Yes, that's
I've heard of those things.
there are lots of factors that
Yes.
you need to factor into the equation.
Yes.
You understand? It's not just one thing.
Yes.
Yeah. But let's
So
not
so that
deviate.
means
Let's not
I know
deviate.
that means if the person is it a lot of factors. That means if the person goes into another relationship
Yeah.
and is not abusive to this other person, does that mean the victim?
He's playing victim.
Yeah.
That's why I said in the last episode we had, I've started with this. I said, number one, before you say your partner is an abuser, you must first identify the victim and the abuser, because some persons play victim, but they are the abusers.
Yeah.
It's a manipulative technique. So that's why I said you must first validly identify who's the. So what we are talking about now is a case where we know for sure the guy is the abuser or
Yes.
the girl is the abuser.
Yes.
But people playing victim is something that will always happen.
Yeah.
Now
You
you know
understand?
for sure now this person is the abuser.
Yeah.
And he goes into a relationship and is a perfect guy in that relationship.
You say you can take a boy away from the village, but you cannot take the village away from the boy. So an abuser, whether it's this relationship or that relationship
You
or
will
the other
see the
relationship,
same.
an abuser will remain an abuser.
Really?
As a matter of fact, if you want to argue that his first girlfriend was the problem and he meets a better girlfriend, he will be 2 times more abusive, because men tend to be more abusive to submissive women than to,
You sure?
to the ones that we question them. Yes. Submissiveness has proven to even make the abuser more abusive. Do your research. I come from a psychological lens.
Very interesting. Very interesting. But there are also some guys who crave control, and they also get into an abusive relationship with someone who would stand up for themselves.
Yes, that's why you see cases where you see a man always fighting with one woman, always fighting, right? And then they have a divorce. This man goes to another woman, and you see that there is no fight. It's not necessarily. It could be the other woman was a problem, the previous woman, but not necessarily. It could be that woman just knew how to stand up for herself. Why this other woman is overly submissive and will just take anything. Bro, I've seen these things happen. Come on. From the enormousness of my experiences, I've seen these things play out. As a relationship, I've seen this. Some women, I swear down. I told you about the YouTube video I watched, right? Some women say, I love when my husband beat me. Bro, that is trauma bonding in reality. Face value of trauma bonding. He said, I love. And as a matter of fact, some women have been so traumatized that if their husband doesn't beat them, he feels that the husband is giving attention to another woman.
That's crazy. That's insane. I don't know how I can believe that statement. It is.
Some women have a problem with their husband not beating them.
Jennifer says
Recently-
men always likes that. That's bro. I can't follow that world. Because my
swear.
brain just cannot understand this.
What I just explained?
Yeah.
Bro, it's true. Some women, if their husband doesn't beat them for 2 months, they feel like that man must be seeing another woman.
Well, that's crazy.
That's why I say I look at this from a psychological perspective. You understand?
Yeah.
So if you look at it from a psychological and in-depth perspective, then you will understand. You will understand that abuse is not a small matter.
Wow.
And an abuser
Wow.
just wake up and say, I change. Wow.
Well, that's insane.
That would be the
final
miracle.
thoughts. Final thoughts. We've got 5 minutes to wrap it up. Any final thoughts about the key takeaways from today? I'll even ask Kitty. You've been on the show. I love it that you stayed out throughout. I think you're definitely going to have some very interesting final thoughts. Brian, any final thoughts from you?
People can change.
People can change. I love it. He believes it.
And they can change themselves without a therapist.
Mm.
That's what I feel. That's what I feel. Me?
Okay.
That's what I feel.
Okay. Okay. Final takeaway.
Should I respond to his takeaway?
No, you don't.
Okay.
It's your own takeaway.
It's your takeaway.
Your own
Not-
takeaway.
not-
Okay.
That's kind of my takeaway to your own takeaway.
Okay,
You order fried rice. You order jollof rice. Deep fried rice now. Keep the rice away, guys.
Why did
Okay, I would have given a takeaway that is a response to yours, but let's leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. But my takeaway tonight is we've treated the gray areas of abuse over the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very personal subject for a lot of us, even if a lot of people might not be open enough to talk about it in public. And I think that in as much as we want to point fingers and say this person is an abuser, we should also look inward and see whether we're actually playing victim or whether we are truly victims. And as an abuser, we should look inward and seek therapy. According to what Mr. Bancott said in the last episode, there are pro bono therapists and coaches.
Yes.
And you have a coach here. You can talk to me,
Yes.
Mr. K, Africula.
You can reach out.
on
You can reach
Instagram,
out to
you
Mr.
know?
K at
And I
Africula.
believe that if we want a better society, it's gonna start.
Why are you laughing?
Let's forget about it. It's a distraction. If you
We've
you know
got
they
2
say
more
they
minutes.
say a prophet is not respected in his home.
That's
He knows me too much, so that's why.
Thanks for sharing, Kay, and thank you for sharing, Brian. My key takeaway from this is that abuse in all forms is easily identified, but we also need to shift our perspective into understanding whether, are we actually playing the victim game or are we actual victims? Very much to what Kay has already mentioned, but I also agree with Brian that people can change.
Yeah.
I actually believe that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Wet Waters Relationship Podcast. It was not an easy conversation. Even for me, it was not very easy to really add on a lot of things because I'm learning as we go as well, just like all of you. So thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you for tuning in all the way to the very end. Let us know what other topics we should discuss next in the comment section. We're also going to post this. We're going to post shorts on TikTok and Instagram as well. So if you guys have any ideas on what you would like to listen to, let us know, and we would love to hear your comments and see how we can also accommodate to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Take care, bye-bye, and we are signing off.